think the video is working now. So when we take notes, we're always going to put the date on the left-hand side. So today is Monday, 8/8/22. That's just how I write my dates. I'm 20 years in. It's not going to change. Okay. I put little dots instead of dashes. You can put whatever you want. Those are my 8s. Those also aren't going to change. So yes, that's just what they look like. Okay. So that's on the top left corner. On the top right corner, we put our topic, which today is classifying values. Everybody with me so far? Yep, pretty straightforward. So we have the date, and then we have classifying values. Tomorrow we'll make our table of contents. What's a table of contents? What is it, Xavier?
It tells you where everything's at.
Absolutely. It tells us where everything's at. So what 2 pieces of information do you think we're going to use to determine where something is in our binder?
The 2 quarters, like the date and
The date and the topic, right? The date and the topic. I used to put page numbers, but inevitably we all write differently. Some of us write bigger and take up more space. Some of us write smaller. Some of us have wide ruled. Some of us have college ruled. So I stopped putting page numbers. So we narrowed it down to date and topic. That will be part of our table of contents. Yes, sir?
Can we narrow it down to dividers?
So our dividers are going to be, we'll designate the dividers tomorrow. Okay, there will be specific little tabs in each divider. Okay, but for today, we're just going to get our notes done. All right, so we're going to classify values today, which means basically we're going to say, hey, where does each number fall in the number system? So we're going to start out pretty basic with the natural numbers. Natural numbers. So natural numbers, I like to describe those because they can be confusing once we do all the categories as what you start with if you started counting your fingers. So what number am I going to start with if I'm starting to count my fingers? 1. I'm going to start with my thumb usually, and I'm going to say 1. Do I start at 0?
0.
Like if I'm just counting my fingers though.
No.
I start at 1. So that's considered a natural number, right? So when you're talking about natural numbers, they start at 1, and then they increase, and they keep going on and on forever. I did not start at 0. 0 is not a natural number because it's not something that you can like really point to, right? It's not something you can say, well, this represents 0 because there's nothing there, right? I can't point to 0 cookies. Point to. I just don't have any cookies. Okay. So then natural numbers can also fall into the category of whole numbers. So every layer can work its way down into the next layer. You cannot go backwards up. Okay? So whole numbers actually do start at 0. So now we've got 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. And one of the ways that I help students remember that whole numbers actually has 0 is because the word whole looks like it has a 0 in it. I mean, I know that's the letter O, but you see how this has a natural numbers doesn't, right? Are you with me? Okay. It's just a visual. Sometimes those little visual tricks can be helpful when you're trying to recall the information. So natural numbers are all natural numbers fall into this category. Do all whole numbers fall into natural numbers? Nope. Okay, so then all of these numbers also fall into this category. Integers. What's the first thing you think of when you hear the word integers? Math.
Numbers.
Okay. Okay, specifically what kind of numbers?
Big,
Hmm?
big numbers.
No, not necessarily. Integers now include,
Fractions.
not quite, Lorraine?
Decimal.
Not quite.
It's like whole numbers, like, I don't know, like,
There are whole numbers mixed
Oh.
in there, yep. But there's very specifically another type of number that usually people don't like. Nicole? Not quite exponents yet, somebody said it. Negative numbers. So now we have all of these negative numbers and our whole numbers, which also includes some of our natural numbers. And these, like, ellipsis here just means that also -4, -5, -6, and so on. And this goes to 4, 5, 6, and so on. So we start out with our naturals, then we add the 0, then we add the negatives, which are integers. And then all of these numbers, all the way down, can now fit into the category of rational numbers. And this is where those fractions come in.
Just kind of not well, the color coded.
Everybody's on the right start here. Got some good notes going, right? One of the biggest indicators of math success, whether you like it or not, is being able to take accurate notes. Because then you can go back and look at them, you have all the information. Every once in a while, I come across some students that try to just like shortcut their notes. Don't do that. Don't shortcut your notes.
Are we ever gonna like take these different ways for input types of Okay.
I would say grab your binder from the shelf. Yep. I'm not gonna make you study without your resource.
Yes.
So far, is everybody following along? Okay, so somebody tell me, what's another way I can write a fraction? How else can I write a fraction, equivalent to a fraction amount? Jackson?
like a decimal.
Sure, a decimal. And then how can I rewrite a decimal as an equivalent amount? So I've got fractions, decimals,
Whole number.
percent, whole number. I could write it as a whole number, but percents. Okay. So one of the things that I like to, and maybe you guys know this, so I'm not trying to insult. I'm not trying to insult like that you don't know this, but I didn't learn this until like a couple years ago. I mean, I knew, but I didn't know necessarily what it meant. Okay, so if you think about a division sign, do you know what these dots stand for? What do they stand for?
The numbers.
The numbers in a fraction, right? Because a fraction is another way of writing what?
Division.
A division problem, right? 2 divided by 5, right? Like I know that 2 divided by 5 will give me my decimal, but it never clicked to me, even after teaching math for so many years, that this actually represents a fraction. Like it never, I must have been absent the day they taught that in middle school, I don't know. But it did not occur to me until, I think it was actually a student that told me about it. Like, oh yeah, this teacher in 5th grade taught me that. Like, you know the emoji where like the little bombs going off in the person's head?
His head explodes.
Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah, okay. So that being said, we have rational numbers. So we could have a fraction, 3/5. And I only write it that way because it's hard to fit 3/5 in that skinny line, right? But 3/5. I could have a decimal value. Note that this is a terminating decimal. What does it mean if it's a terminating decimal? What does that mean? What does the word terminate mean?
Get
Either.
rid of.
Oh wait, never mind.
It doesn't mean to get rid of anything.
Will you like terminate bugs?
Okay, what happens to them?
Yeah.
They end, right? Like it's done. That bug is done, right? So if something terminates, it stops. It's done. So a terminating decimal is where there's no other values, there's no reason to believe there's anything lingering out here. Okay? How could I write this as a fraction? 12.25. How could I write that as a fraction?
12 over 25.
Not quite. Well, 12 is the whole number, right? So I would have 12 as a whole number.
Oh, I think I know.
And then what is 0.25 as a fraction?
4. Wait, bruh, 1.
0.25.
Dude, I don't think you get to say anything. It was 5.
You're really close. You just
5 over 1 or 25 over
25 over 100, which simplifies to what?
0.4.
Why do I say like 0.25?
Yeah.
Okay, but as a fraction, you guys are so close. 1/4. Yeah, I'm not gonna make it that easy for you. 1/4. So you said 1 and you said 4, but you were so close, right? So 12 and 1/4. 1 divided by 4 equals 0.25, right? So that's where that decimal value comes from. Okay, so again, we've got it. That can be written as a fraction. What about if I have the number 13%? How do I write that as a fraction? As a fraction.
13 over
13 over 100. It's 13 out of 100 something happens, right? Maybe if I asked 100 of you, how many of you took a nap over the weekend? 13 would say yes, because the other 87 would be lying, because I'm sure you all took naps.
like 0 would be good.
Did you guys all take naps this weekend?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Oh,
I did.
that's hard possible.
Spent a lot of time at the pool with my boys, and then of course as soon as I get home from the pool,
I went to the pool yesterday.
I
was
want a
so
nap.
tired.
it was hot out.
Yeah.
It's very hot. Okay, so notice that this can be written as a fraction, this can be written as a fraction, this can be written as a fraction. Do you see a trend?
Yeah.
Rational numbers have to be able to be written as a fraction. So then I get to this number, which really throws people off. What does that little line mean? Chloe?
The 6 goes on and on and on.
Forever, never, never, never. Does anybody know how I'd write that decimal as a fraction? Because you can. Okay, so we'll get into that more at a different day, but let's just do a little thing. Pull up your Desmos calculator.
I would guess.
Okay.
I don't think it's right, but it's 6 over 1,000 and then the line.
The 6 is going to be the numerator. You got that going for you. Yes.
What if you just 6 to the 1?
No.
Is there a line though in the fraction?
Nope.
No line, okay.
Nope. Okay, does everybody have their calculator open?
Yeah.
Check your neighbors. Make sure they're not trying to do the ed puzzle.
Ooh, don't get on the line puzzle.
The Desmos calculator,
We're good there.
right? We use that one.
My neighbors are lacking.
Sorry? You don't have a Desmos calculator. So, okay, go to Safari and click in Desmos Scientific. P-E-S, M-O-S.
Puzzle right now.
There you go. Just hit go. And then, scientific calculator. Go. And then we're going to add it as a left clip to,
Is it 3 over 5?
I'm gonna do what you
and that'll be there, which I did. Okay, so I want everybody to do the fraction 1/9.
Oh.
So find the decimal equivalent of 1/9. So 1 divided by 9. 0.1 repeating. How about 2/9? 2 divided by 9. What do you get, CJ?
2.
0.2 repeating. How about 3/9?
3 repeating.
0. Do you guys see what's happening here?
It's a
So how do you think I got 0.6 repeating?
6 over 9.
6 divided by 9, right? So there is a pattern, but I had to do that to prove that this also can be written as a fraction. Okay, Lorraine?
Always has to be under 9.
There's like few like fractions that don't have 9 as a denominator, but that's like 95% of them do, right? But if I did 6/9 and I simplified it, what does 6 over 9 simplify to? If I want it in the simplest terms of the fraction. So I can divide 6 and divide 9 by something.
3.
I can divide them each by 3 and I get 2/3. So what happens when you do 2 divided by 3 in your calculator? 2 divided by 3 is going to give you 0.6 repeating, right? So there's a couple different ways you can get there, but this is the 95% of the time, okay? We will, like I said, we'll spend a whole day talking about repeating decimals and fractions. This is just for today's little brief introduction. Okay, so underneath the 0.6 repeating, I want you guys to write repeating decimals, because those are also considered rational numbers. So we've got natural numbers that are also whole numbers. Natural and whole numbers are also integers, and then integers, whole numbers, natural numbers, those fall into rationals, and that's when we get to use fractions and all sorts of fun stuff. Okay, go ahead and close your iPads. You don't need those open again. I'm so sorry to interfere with that. Okay, so now we have all of our numbers. We're happy with them. And then we have a set of values that do not fit into these categories. So this is where everything comes to a stop as far as one thing leading to another. So go ahead and write this fun little zigzag pattern, because rational numbers don't have an arrow down here. This is just a totally different type of number. Oh my gosh. Do you see what's on my computer?
Oh, yeah.
What? Okay, wait for it. You're all going to see it in a second. Wait for it.
It's like a web.
Wait
there
for
in the
it.
ceiling.
Do you see it?
Yeah.
There's a
Do you see
web
this
on
little
the ceiling.
friend?
Where?
you are.
He just went crawling across my computer. Okay, I don't want to hurt him. See if I can get him
Oh my
outside.
gosh.
You think I can make it outside with him?
CJ, you bring it
Here,
out.
I can bring a napkin if you want to bring
No, it's okay. I'm just going to put him on a little ledge out here.
His concert
He is crawling up.
I
Get
don't-
away from me.
I'm allergic to spiders.
I'm trying to save you, mister.
Dang, actually.
CJ has a fear of spiders.
Okay,
Same.
somebody needs to come open the window.
CJ, hurry.
Please. It's like stuck. Okay.
You're a savior.
He's gonna drop him.
Not you.
No,
Thank you.
don't do
Well, she
it.
probably just hurt him.
He's okay.
Don't
He's
do it.
fine. He's fine.
What the flip?
He just like floated down.
He's a devil.
He's gonna be happy ever after.
Yeah, I think he fell from that high.
He's fine. He latched onto the bricks. He's fine.
He could have
Wow.
had family.
I don't know
He could have
about
eggs. Little big eggs.
Well, that's especially why we need to get him out of here.
And they just foster care.
They're fine.
Probably.
They're fine. Okay, so this last set of numbers is called irrational numbers. And irrational numbers are very similar to irrational humans. If somebody says, wow, they're being so irrational, what are they saying about that person?
They're being or like
Being crazy.
that.
Maybe a little crazy, maybe a little unpredictable.
Devious.
So devious is actually like, you know what that person's intentions are. The trouble with irrational is like, you don't know, right? You don't know what's going to happen next with that person, right? I have a sister who I consider incredibly irrational. I never know if what I say is going to like be okay with her or if she's going to say horrible things about like whatever I decided to add to a conversation, right? She's very unpredictable. And so I consider irrational to be unpredictable. Right? We're not sure what their motives are. We're not sure about their mood. Okay? So the reason they're considered unpredictable is because they cannot be written as fractions. Right? They are just these weird numbers. We have them, we use them, but you know, they're unpredictable and not our favorites. So there's one number that I'm sure you're all very familiar with, considered the most unpredictable number. It never ends.
Pi.
Pi.
Come on.
Right? Goes on and on forever, never stops. You've seen those posters that start out and they keep going and the numbers get tinier and tinier and it just keeps going. Right? So if we were to write pi as a decimal, we just stop right after a few. And then you'll see this dot, dot, dot. This tells you it's non-terminating. That means it goes on and on forever. Okay. And the last one I want you to have written down, which might not make super sense right now, is the square root of a non-perfect square.
Oh, yeah, we learned about that.
Right? So what's a perfect square?
Like,
Square root of 9.
4, 6, 8.
Sure. Those are even numbers.
Is it like
Also
another
to start to a
anything,
cheer.
right?
It's not odd.
Sorry? Yes, square root of 9 would be 3, right? So that would be a rational number because I can write 3 as a fraction. What would 3 be as a fraction?
0.5.
How do I write?
3 over 1.
Exactly. You just put it over 1 and you have improper fraction, but it works, okay? So any number that's not a perfect square, like 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, any other number under here is going to make it an irrational value. Okay? Do we have any questions so far? All right, you are going to put this in your binder. Just put it in there so it's safe. Then you're going to put your binder away, and then you're going to go to Canvas and do the Ed puzzle.
They did it like third grade.
Well, if you do horrible on it, we're going to have a conversation, but for right now, it's for completion. Tomorrow is the parent night, yep, and it's NWEA. Got a lot going on tomorrow.